And we're going to Israel now, where a Labour court says a nationwide strike being held in the country must end following a petition from the government. The strike, which has been taking place today, is intended to pressure the government into securing the release of the remaining hostages held by militants in Gaza. Demonstrators have blocked main roads across the country, and flights at Tel Aviv's Gurion airport are facing delays. Last night's mass demonstrations took place across Israel, calling for a deal with Hamas to free the hostages that are still being held. The protests come after Israel's military said 6 hostages were killed by their captors. The army said soldiers found their bodies a short time later in a tunnel. Meanwhile, Israel's offensive in Gaza continues.
There is sadness everywhere. This is 24-year-old Eden Yeroshami's funeral. She was in Hamas's captivity for nearly 11 months. The family had hoped their daughter would return home safely.
This is not how I imagined it would end, Eden, my love. I wanted so bad to have you back alive. I wanted to get back my Eden, my funny Eden, the one making us laugh. So many people wanted to get to know you, but not like this. Not like this, Eden.
Eden is among the 6 other hostages whose bodies were recovered from Gaza on Sunday. The Israeli military said Hamas fighters had killed them shortly before they found their bodies. The news of their killings led to an eruption of mass demonstrations across Israel, pressuring the government to make a deal with Hamas to free the nearly 100 hostages who are still held in Gaza. On Monday, the country faced a strike, further pressuring the government to work on a solution that could bring the hostages back. People in the region are struck with an overwhelming grief. Just around 100 kilometers away from Tel Aviv, in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis, relatives mourn the loss of their loved ones killed in an Israeli strike. And here in the central Gaza city, an Israeli attack caused several casualties.
A Gaza City municipal vehicle was targeted, resulting in a number of martyrs and injuries. They were transported by ambulance to hospitals, and the fire in the vehicle was extinguished.
According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, more than 40,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since Israel launched its war on Hamas following the group's October 7 terror attacks. The war has left thousands of people in Israel and Gaza devastated. Many continue to hope for an effort that could finally halt the fighting.
Our Middle East analyst Shani Rosanes joins me in the studio now for more. Shani, why did this execution, one must say, it wasn't the first, but this one had a much stronger impact than previous Hamas atrocities? Why?
Quite strong impact. Some people say it was the saddest day in Israel since October 7th. It was really, you could see the national mourning and everybody being very much upset. Several reasons. They were young, healthy, relatively healthy, most of them. They became household names in Israel. Many people know them, know their stories, know their families by now. One of the more prominent international of these now late hostages is Hersh Goldberg Poland. His mom, Rachel, has been seen, speaking in international media day in and day out since October 7th. So they were quite known names for every Israeli. And also at the same time, we know that 4 of these 6 were actually on the lists in the negotiated deal that's been, going back and forth since May. So the feeling was that this could have been prevented, that they were almost there, they were almost back. And for all sorts of reasons, mostly political, if you ask the protesters that we've been seeing on the streets since yesterday, Netanyahu has been stalling. And that, of course, led to their execution by Hamas. But Israeli policy has not shown enough urgency in trying to bring them back.
Now, as we've heard, Israel's main labor union has called a general strike today. Will this strike be able to pressure Netanyahu to accept a truce deal?
Well, it is the first wide, strike we've been seeing since October 7th. This is the harshest measure that we've seen taken by not just the workers, but also private businesses and municipalities, everybody kind of joining, trying to, pressure Netanyahu for being more active in trying to promote the deal. Netanyahu is a very divisive figure in Israel. Is very much he has his base, and then there's all the rest. So it seems, and it's been becoming more and more. This rift, this schism in Israeli society has become more and more strong in the last months. And I think Netanyahu himself also sees that. I mean, there's very little background noises, as he might see it, coming from the left or sort of out of his base that can actually move him or shift, his policies. He feels like everything he does, is already, he never gets a fair chance by the media, by the public, and so on. I don't think this will make a difference. We will still need to see how much of momentum this wave of demonstrations will eventually have. And if it will grow big enough, it might shift some other members of the coalition that then will maybe exert their pressure on Netanyahu. But I doubt this will actually make much of a difference.
Talking about pressure on Netanyahu, the media reports that the American administration is currently preparing a final take-it-or-leave-it ceasefire deal. Mm-hmm. How much leverage does the U.S. really have?
No, that's the good question. I mean, the leverage of the Americans, especially Biden himself, knowing that he's not running for re-election, is very much eroded. If he ever had any leverage, of course, since his announcement that he's withdrawing from the presidential race, that has completely diminished. There's always, the biggest tool that Americans have is their support, their military support, their support for the Israeli defense. Biden will be very reluctant to do anything, to withdraw some of that. We've seen, the backlash for any, delays in shipment of armaments so far. And we need to keep in mind, as much as there's a lot of anger and frustration on Netanyahu and the political, the way the politics have been affecting his decisions, we also have another side here, and this is Hamas, and we don't see much of flexibility there. It brings us to a point where we are more than 10 months in, and we don't see any change coming, unfortunately.
Shani Razan is there. Thank you very much, Shani.